Let's get started.
Haircut, man. My shit's getting all shaggy.
Right. All right, here we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to this week's episode. We're getting part 2 with Jeramy Ellison here on Texas Narcos. So we had a lot of stuff that we talked about last week. Let's just jump right back in here. So we talked about your first dope seizure. One of the questions I like to ask everybody is working dope or working money? Which one do you like the best? And what's the difference in the smugglers, or if any? Is there a different type of smuggler that takes dope, or a different type of smuggler that carries cash?
It's a good question, man. I love the heartbreak side.
Yeah,
all that, the money side,
right?
To me personally, any seizure is great, right? Dope or money, you're making an impact. Big or small, it does not matter. However, if you get to a level where you're so experienced, I feel like, and this is again just personal preference, I feel like if you hit these cartels in the pockets, that hurts them the most.
Yeah.
And I've always been kind of an advocate about this, but when I brought Jay Flores on and started teaching, I asked him, I'll never forget this. It was so crazy to me. I asked Jay, I said, hey man, what's the biggest seizure you ever had knocked off on your crew?
Yeah.
And he said, oh, dope wise? I was like, yeah, dope. He's like, oh, over like 400 kilos. I was like, geez, man, 400 keys.
Yeah.
I was like, did that hurt your organization? And I'll never forget this. He looked at me like I was dumb. I was like, no.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? No. He's like, no, not at all. I said, over 400 kilos, that didn't hurt your organization. He's like, no. Kilos are cheap. He said, now, if you would have hit me on my money side, oh man, that would have hurt big time. I said, really? I said, explain it to me. So we just talked about it, man. Everything from Mexico starts with money, right? You have to pay everyone to get the dope up.
Right.
And if you limit that cash flow, it's hard to get that dope up.
Right.
And I think law enforcement's kind of stuck in the opposite, realm of it as they think about the drugs, which again, I will hit a kilo any day, all day long, still make an impact. But, once you start digging deep, especially when you start talking to Jay, and I think that's one thing I love about the class that we came up with, Surviving El Chapo from Kingpin to Educator, is just giving law enforcement a different perspective, right? Because we're always kind of stuck in that mindset of, what we've done and what we've always done. And it's hard for us to kind of try something different or get out of our comfort zone. And with Jay discussing a lot of these things, that has helped me big time in my career. I started really focusing on things outside the norm for me, and it's paid off though. It really has.
Yeah. That's, he kind of hit on that, during the class, where he was talking about, the cash side of it, like if you want to cripple the organization, you go after their money.
Yep.
And, he had said something about, he told me he was going to give me a question to ask you. He said something about, he said, tell Jeremy, get him to talk about how he should have listened to me and he would have hit that load or something like that. Does that make any sense to you?
Oh man, I don't know.
I didn't get a chance to get the full question out of him, but, there's a lot of people there, but yeah, no, I mean, I can imagine having a tool like that on your side where, he did. He talked about a bunch of things I never even thought of. Like he talked about the Teslas.
Yeah.
He was like putting dope in the bat. I never even thought of that.
Yeah.
Right. So, but yeah, definitely hitting the money side is good. There's the old phrase, you can't buy Tahoes with kilos. Right. So, there's that part of it too,
Sure.
Turning dope money into money for your agency is good.
Yeah.
So,
I would imagine he's referring to the semi truck, a couple of money loads. We hammered down on 80 pretty good up in Chicago last year. So he did because he's only been teaching now for about 8 months. And so right before that course, we were kind of building the class and, we're discussing a lot of things, having little miniature classes just to kind of go for the flow. It's a process, right? It takes a while to really get it nailed down. And a lot of stuff he was talking with the semi trucks was like, shit, I'd never look at.
Right.
Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, why?
Yeah.
Like, same thing like the bus, right?
Yeah.
He was talking about, oh man, with my drivers, I would make sure that driver was disgusting.
Yeah.
He's like, I would want to walk up to that semi truck and be gagging. It smelled so bad. And I'm just like sitting there, like, damn.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee anyone that's watching this, they've been in that situation, a car, semi truck, whatever. You walk up to and you're like, oh man, have a great day, right?
Yeah.
But he did that the same reason they did that on the buses, right? They want you to be taken away and step back and be like, oh, nope, not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started kind of doing that. I think that's what he's referring to. We had one truck that was just so gross. Had $500,000 just thrown underneath the bunk.
Wow.
East Coast, West Coast.
Wow.
It's and it helped though. It's really, even to this day, I'm still learning.
Right.
I'm still learning. I'm always open to.
Right.
And so when he mentioned a lot of those scenarios and things he did, just kind of reset my brain and made me think, outside that box.
Right. That's cool. You mentioned working up in Chicago. What's that about? So are you you're on some sort of a task force up there? Or?
Yeah, so it's kind of a little confusing. So I was in Texas from Williamson County about 8 years or so. I ended up transferring from there down to Fayette County.
Okay.
So I went from 3-lane highway northbound, southbound, 35 to I-10.
Right.
Changed it up 2 lanes, eastbound, westbound. A lot of different traffic, similar but different. And then my wife's in school, so she's getting her doctorate in psychology. The school ended up kind of transferring out, so she had an opportunity to go up there. And so we were there for approximately 3 years.
Okay.
And I didn't know what to do, right? I was, I've been working in interdiction my entire life.
Right.
So when I got up there, I kind of started making phone calls to people I knew, and one thing led to another, and I got hired onto the Tried and Drug Task Force up there. So it's a small group, multi-jurisdictional. You've got like 3 counties and about 10 different PDs. We've got 4 guys, including myself, that worked interstate, and then full-time, and then, part-time, full-time, it was mixed. And then you had all your street level guys that did, undercover work, spies, stuff like that. So it was a fun experience. I learned a lot.
Yeah. It's a whole different part.
Oh man. That's why I stressed everyone, like, if you're new, especially new to interdiction, like, take it. I've been doing this for a long time. Right. I go from Texas to Chicago, and I'm sitting on that highway, and I'm like, what am I doing? I know a license plate goes by. I'm like, what state is that from? Clinton, and he's a really good friend of mine that worked up in Chicago, gave me so much hell. And it was good though, because it's a learning experience, right? I would stop a vehicle, go through things, and Clint's just sitting back there just laughing because he knows it's nothing.
Right.
But the biggest thing is learning what's normal, what's not.
Right.
And the only way to do that is to stop a lot of cars and figure out what's normal, what's not.
Yeah.
So I'd stop all these things. I'm like, man, this is ridiculous. This doesn't make sense. And then when I start talking to Clint, he's like, oh yeah, this and that. I'm like, oh, okay. It took like 7 months to hit my first load.
Wow.
A long time. Oh my God. But again, it was a process. The first one I hit though, it was good. It was an elderly male. I think he was 65, retired military. Yeah. Had the old military hat on. Yeah. Registered plates out of the East Coast. He was going from the East Coast to West Coast with a friend of his. Story didn't make sense going out to Vegas. Didn't have a hotel booked. You know, just a lot of things that you think to yourself, that's odd. Ended up paying like, I don't even know, $300,000, 2 quarter metal traps with an 8-ball of Coke they had. I think they forgot about it.
Nice.
But, it's just, you got to take your time. Yeah. Right.
So was he going out to pick up, or he was taking money back?
Yeah, he was dropping money off and then picking up keys.
Okay.
Yeah. He's retired from the military.
I think I've seen this movie.
Yeah.
Isn't there a movie about the old man hauling dope across the country with, what's it called? The mule?
Yeah. 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 One of my favorites, I call him the old Clint Eastwood of smuggling. He was 85 years old.
Wow.
Dude, and this guy didn't even do it for the money.
Oh, yeah?
No. He was so excited when he got stopped.
Really?
He's like, oh my God, I was wondering when I was going to get stopped. I've been doing this for a while. He did it for the thrill of it.
Wow.
He had an exhaust trap running loads from New York down to Mexico. Wow. On a regular basis. Wow. 85-year-old.
So just hauling cash.
Yeah, cash and dope.
Wow.
I ended up getting them empty southbound when I found the compartment. I mean, I thought it was going to be like a mill. Yeah. Now he had $6,000 in the compartment.
Wow.
And like a quarter of it was pesos, which was bizarre. I've never seen that before.
He's taking pesos.
I've been doing this forever. Never have I ever seen pesos other than that one. But it was bundled up with electrical tape and cellophane.
Taking pesos. That's not even worth that's not even worth the weight, right? Like,
Yeah.
That's crazy. One of these days I need to go up to Chicago and do an episode with those guys up there.
Oh man,
get another perspective.
That group, there's so many people in this interdiction world that people really don't ever hear about, right? Because they're not on social media. They're not posting their seizures. Right. I mean, if you look at that group, there's 3 guys. Clint, Bob, and Mike. They're all retired from either Illinois State Police or their surrounding agencies. Those guys, if you look at their career and what they're doing now, oh my God. Clint hit $9.3 million cash on a cold stop in a semi-truck a couple years back.
God.
I mean, these dudes are ripping loads left, right, but you'll never hear of them. Wow. Right? It's amazing. And I can't tell you how much I learned from those guys. Wow. It was a blast. I was honestly so sad leaving there.
Yeah.
Other than the politics and you know, that kind of stuff up there. But that group was just amazing. And they're just a sponge of information.
Wow.
I've been doing it for so long.
I need to take a trip up there. I need to go meet these guys and interview them.
Dude, let's do it.
It'd be an awesome episode.
Oh yeah. I'll go back out there.
Yeah. That'd be fun.
Ride out, man. Yeah. They're wealth of knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be kind of cool. I should do what do I think about that? Expand the channel a little bit, outside of Texas.
That'd be cool, man.
Yeah. I mean, I've had Jim was from Pennsylvania, and then did Al and Bauer from Arizona.
Yeah.
I've got Jeremy Bedingfield. We're going to do an episode probably, I think, either this month or next month.
When he just rode out with Jeremy, man. That's a crazy highway he works.
Yeah.
It's unreal.
Yeah, we're going to do an episode here. I think when he comes down to teach here, we're going to do an episode. Yeah. So I'm trying to get as many people on the show as I can.
That's awesome, man.
Just because, I want people to hear these stories. And, that was the whole purpose of doing the podcast. I've talked about this in the past was just to get the stories that are out there that, all these guys have, and just let people hear it and stuff. And so
I love what you're doing because there's so much knowledge to be, taken in by a lot of people that you really haven't heard about.
Right. Yeah. I started this back in June, and my very first episode was with a long time friend of mine. His name's Mike, and he's long since retired, but he got on there and talked about his 18 months of being a undercover cop down near the Houston area.
Oh yeah.
Now, when I say undercover, he didn't have like a cover team. Like, he would come into town on the weekend on a Friday. He would park his personal car up in a different town. He would switch out his driver's licenses and everything. Yeah. He would get in this old junky car, drive to another town, get a hotel room, and he would spend all weekend in the bars and the beer joints and whatever, just doing dope deals, right? And this was back in the 70s. This was like 1974, right? Yeah. And didn't have a cover team. The only person in the town that he was working in that knew who he was the chief.
Okay.
He would get his dope. He would get his evidence. He would package it all up. He would take a piece of notebook paper and would put his report in there. He would package it all up. And then he had a dead drop. He had a storage unit that he would pull up to. He would unlock it. He would put his evidence at the end of the weekend in there. He would put the lock on, and he would tie like a red ribbon to the storage unit so that the evidence guy, when he came in to work on Monday morning, he drove through there. And if the red ribbon was out, he knew there was evidence, and he would stop, unlock it, get the evidence out. And he did this for like 18 months until he got, there was an incident where I guess the guy called the chief and said, "Hey, I know who this guy is, blah, blah, blah." So the chief called him and said, "Hey, I need you to come in, take a shower, cut your hair, come in uniform tomorrow." And he spent the next 8 months putting all the indictments together, and then they went and picked everybody up. So,
really? Wow.
And this guy's in his 70s now, right? And I've known him for a long time. He's actually the reason I got into law enforcement.
Okay. Interesting.
I've known him since like 2002. But so that was my very first episode. And the whole idea behind this was there's all these stories. Like, I remember back when I was a detective, working property crimes, there was some older guys, they're all passed on now, that, they had been there for years and years and years. And I would come into their office, into their cubicles in the mornings, and we would just sit there and just listen to them tell stories, right? had the greatest stories ever. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, I want to do a platform where, I can get these stories out there to people, because if you don't record them and get them out there, when those people die, those stories are gone, right?
That's true. So true.
So that was the whole kind of purpose behind doing the podcast. And like I said, that was in June, and here we are in November the 3rd. I think we've got 20 something episodes out. We got been really, really blessed. We just hit over 8,500 views on YouTube.
Outstanding, man.
On the Spotify platform, we just hit 5,000 on Spotify. Okay. 8,500 on the audios.
Outstanding.
So yeah, man, it's been crazy.
Happy for you.
I didn't expect it to, pick up like this, but
I love what you're doing though. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, man.
Officers listening to this, you're going to get something out of it.
Yeah. It's, I was telling my wife this the other day. I was looking on Spotify. It tells you the countries that people are, it tells you what countries people are listening. There's like 26 countries.
Really?
All over the world.
Really?
Like South Korea, like just places I've never even heard of. There's people there because it tells you where everybody's listening from. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. So
I'm curious to see like what kind of work they do. Is it law enforcement related or some type of, I would imagine so.
Yeah. Yeah. If it's people that are in the military or, I don't know. I mean, places I've never even heard of, where, but yeah, it's crazy. It's, there was a guy that, right after I first put out my first batch of T-shirts, I got a message on Facebook, and he wanted some T-shirts. He wanted 2 T-shirts, and I told him to. I said, "Yeah, no problem, whatever. Just tell me your address." And so he gives me the address. He's in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and I was like, "Can I even ship T-shirts to Cuba?" And he was like, "Yeah, no. I'm in the military, And so he gave me the address, and I was like, "Okay, yeah,
really,
yeah." So
that's awesome, man.
So. But yeah, no, it was fun.
Worldwide exposure.
Yeah, I never expected all this. So I've reached out to Jelly Roll. If you're listening, Jelly Roll, I'm still waiting on your response. I'd love to have you on the show to talk about your life and how you went from being a drug dealer to a famous singer. So, but I haven't heard nothing back from Jelly Roll yet. So.
He'll reach out eventually.
Yeah, we'll see. So, but anyways, cool. So why don't we talk about how you and Jay got hooked up together? That's good. It's probably a lot of people would like to know that.
Yeah, that's the number one question I get. So Jay reached out to me via social media. Okay. I got this message from a really bizarre account name and said, "Hey, I used to work for the cartel. I think I could be of great service and help provide some, knowledge to the law enforcement world." And I'm like, "Yeah, block."
That's funny.
It just ever since I started, this train, you get some bizarre messages. Yeah. I don't know if you've come across that yet, but you're like, "What is going on?" Yeah. So I just thought it was. Block, right? Yeah. So like a week later, I get the same message, very similar, but off the same type of thread. He used the first message and then continued on with the second. So I knew it was the same person. He's like, "Hey, I hope I didn't like offend you or something like this." He's like, "I'm just truly trying to reach out. I think I could be of help." And I'm like, "Man, I don't know." I still blocked it. Yeah. And it was a new account. He was persistent though. Yeah. The third time he messaged, I opened it up. I was like, "All right, man, this guy must be somewhat like, it's not like a bot or something. Right. It's a legitimate person, possibly." So I reach out and message him back, and I'm trying to get some information. He's just kind of being, provide a little bit, but not a lot. I was like, "Well, let's do this. Just have a phone call, talk about it, discuss it." So we get on a call like a week later or something, we get it scheduled up, jump on the call, and we're talking. And, I start giving him a lot of questions in the interdiction world that not a lot of people would know unless you were working in it, either law enforcement or as a criminal. Right. And man, he was detailed. Yeah. So I was like, "Man, this guy's seems pretty legitimate." But I'm like, I've had a lot of past experience with people we've arrested, we've tried to implement in, and it's just been kind of wish-washy, and you don't really know their true intentions, right? Yeah. That's something I'm always a little hesitant about. So long story short, this was over, we were talking and talking. This was over months. Right. And I was like, the best way I can really tell somebody's authenticity is person to person, right? Just like we're talking today.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the best way to really read somebody.
Yeah.
So I flew out. I won't say where, but we decided on a couple different areas of the country and flew out to a major city. I brought Clint with me. I was like, "Hey, Clint, man, need a backup, bro." Yeah. Clint was thrilled, though, man. When you do the podcast, you have to ask him about it. Man.
Okay.
When we started talking, I actually should probably back up a little bit because I still didn't know who he was, even after the phone calls.
Yeah.
It only came about where he said, "Do you know who I am?" I said, "No, I have no idea who you are. You just you sound like a crazy person on the phone right now. Like, I don't know."
Yeah.
And so after we hung out, he messaged me the El Chapo thing.
So the podcast?
A link with him and his brother.
Okay.
His twin brother, about the whole deal in Chicago, which is interesting because I'm actually familiar with that case.
Right.
I'm like, no way. That's the dude that was calling me?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's crazy. So I start doing a ton of research and I'm looking, I'm reading, and I'm watching articles and all sorts of stuff. And he did 12 years prison time, got out. And then it just kind of proceeded from there. And we flew up, met him. We met at dinner at, 4:00 or something, and had dinner with him, talked to him. I was out till 3:30, maybe 4 a.m.
Wow.
I was like a sponge.
Yeah.
I was asking so many questions. It was just so interesting.
Yeah.
You talked about after the class, people just asking a lot of questions.
Oh, yeah.
Law enforcement, they're going to take it one of two ways, right?
Yeah.
They're either going to be they're going to sit back and just be like, or they're actually going to try to, open up their mindset and their idea of how they've been doing it forever to maybe change.
Yeah.
So, Clint and I were just asking. Every time we asked a question, it just opened up another road.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting.
Yeah.
It was so interesting. And over months, we kept communicating and talking. And Jay was like, "Man, I'd really like to, just change the law enforcement perspective."
Yeah.
And if you think about law enforcement, how many times do we get the opportunity to really get the backside of these cartels or other criminals?
Yeah.
We'll get a snitch, right? We'll get a snitch that might know a little bit, but in reality, they're just another number.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're not the main guys pushing it.
Yeah, they're not the guy.
And you talk about Jay's organization, he's pushing $30-40 million cash in semi-trucks down south at a time. All you had to do is stop the truck and open up the back doors.
Yeah.
And he looked at me like I was crazy. Like he asked me, he's like, "What's the biggest seizure you've heard about on the highway?" And I'm like money wise, I don't know. I was like, I remember Billy Sides, Ronnie Stiltner. Amazing guys, huge mentors of mine. I don't even know if they're still doing it. Hits. I know Billy.
A lot of hit stuff.
I know Billy retired. I think Ronnie might have retired too. Amazing guys. I learned so much from them. I actually taught for them early in my career. Amazing people, but they hit one of the biggest money seizures. I think it was like 10 mil off a cold stop. And then the other one, maybe like 8, 9, 10, something like that out in Atlanta. There's not that many big. Do you know of any?
No. Those are the biggest numbers I've heard.
I know like whisper stops where, I don't really count those, off of a cold stop though. But even I take that back. Even a whisper stop, I don't know of anything over 12.
Right.
Yeah. And when I told Jay, I was like, probably about 12, 13 maybe. And I threw a little couple higher numbers. And he's just like, "What?" I'm like, that's significant. Like, you ask any law enforcement officer, you get 12 million. That's a friggin'.
Yeah, that's your whole career.
He's like, "Oh man, that was nothing to us." He's like, "We'd push 20, 30, 40 million dollars." I'm like, "Oh my God."
Wow.
But he's absolutely right though. He's absolutely right. If you look at the statistics, especially in Colombia, they're getting bulk cash right now. Like, I'm talking bulk cash. There's a video that I shared during that class. I don't know if he shared it yesterday or this last class with you. We transitioned to the 2 days, so it's just too much information. So 2 days, great. But we added this video straight from DEA and all these feds working these cases, and they can't keep up with the seizures.
Right.
They're literally getting hundreds of millions of dollars in bulk currency coming from the U.S. But why are we not seeing it here?
Right.
It blows my mind. Like, these guys are getting it shipped from, Mexico out to Colombia and wherever the case is, but where are those seizures happening here?
Yeah.
Everyone's like, "Oh, well, maybe it's crypto." I do think there's crypto. smaller organizations, even the largers will do it. But you think about no dope dealer is on the side of the road saying, "Hey man, let me get your crypto coin for that." That 8 ounce. They're paying cash, right?
Let me get your wallet address.
Now, could they go to those Bitcoin machines? Or yes, absolutely. I will never take anything, but especially when you talk to Jay, it's just not almost possible. You just can't. You cannot. You would be the biggest red flag if you had that much money going through your bank accounts.
Yeah. The tradecraft that has to be involved in getting those kind of numbers down there undetected is crazy. I can just imagine, you're sitting there for 6 hours, 8 hours, just like absorbing all this information. That's crazy.
Yeah. Have you ever worked on the south border?
No.
Mexico, U.S.? It's interesting.
Yeah.
I always suggest anytime you have a chance to do it. It's so, you get so much knowledge and information, but you go, I don't care if it's from Texas all the way to California, the northbound side, you will see CBP, like all these agents working that northbound traffic. And then guess how many are in the southbound lane? Nobody. They drive on.
Yeah.
And I was blown away. This was 12, 13 years ago when I first saw it. I'm like, wait, these guys are just driving through. They're like, oh yeah, we only work it on details here and there. There's groups that, will work it hard at times, but it's wide open. These guys know that. And that's one thing interesting talking to Jay is, where is that southbound traffic? Right. We focus so much on that northbound. He's like, man, we had to work so hard to get our dope from down south up into the United States. He said, the money, that was the easiest thing.
Wow.
Think about doing that for years and years and years. He's lost multiple drug loads. Guess how many money loads he's ever lost?
I don't know.
He says 0.
Really?
He said he never worried about it.
Wow.
Ever.
Wow.
And you take that perspective of coming from him and then sitting back in the law enforcement world, you're like, wow.
Yeah.
We need to change some things up.
Yeah. He talked about that. He was like, the people who are controlling the purse strings, up in DC or, wherever it is, there's people making decisions that don't have a clue as to what needs to happen.
Yeah.
Well,
that was an awesome opportunity that we had about 6-8 months ago. We were invited up to Congress.
Yeah.
So Jay and I went up there. He talked in front of all of the Congress that had the task force up there.
Yeah.
Dan Crenshaw was one. Boggs from, I think it's Boggs. Out from Arizona, amazing groups. But it was so refreshing to be able to just go out there and kind of explain our take on it, right? What we think could make a difference, right?
Yeah.
And when we talked about, all the money and seizures and different things, you're right. They don't know. And it's not that they're uneducated. It's just there's not that information that's being passed on.
Right.
Or maybe it is, but it's just not thought of it as Jay's perspective, right? Us in law enforcement, stop the northbound. Right. But it was neat because afterwards they actually were putting in a bill trying to get more agents, more technology, X-rays, different things on that southbound side. Because I honestly, after talking to Jay and working in law enforcement interdiction for this long, I do think it makes a huge difference.
Oh yeah,
it does.
Yeah, the organizations aren't going to stay in power and stay doing what they're doing if they don't have the dollar coming back to them. It's one thing to push dope up, but if you can stop the money coming back to them, then you're going to put a hurting on them. They're not going to, they're going to shift. They're going to change. They're going to, that was one of the things he talked about that I thought was pretty cool. And, he's a pretty smart guy, and he just seems like he's so excited and eager to just jump in with both feet into this world of, on our side, trying to use his intellect and his experience to try to help us, So
it's and it was a lot of pressure on me. When I brought on board, man, I can't tell you how much heat I got for it.
I can imagine.
Oh my God. I had good friends of mine that I thought were good friends that just, and my thought process is, why not give it a try, right?
Yeah.
If you learn something, you learn something.
Yeah.
If you don't, you don't.
Yeah.
But we cannot stay doing the same thing over and over and over and not be open to changing a way we work.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like the name of your company, Dynamic, right? It's always changing.
Yep.
Right.
So, absolutely.
Yeah.
The dynamics are always changing.
Exactly.
Yeah. How I came up with the name.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
Yeah. It was, man, I made up this name a long time. It was dynamic interdiction because things are always changing. It's never the same.
Yeah.
And then, I just kind of progressed into dynamic police training. And kind of,
That's awesome. Couple more things and we'll jump off for today. But the last time you were supposed to come down here, I got a phone call from you, and actually I didn't get a phone call at first. I think I called you because I saw a post on Facebook. Your car got misappropriated.
Oh my
up
God.
in Austin. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, that was I apologize. I meant to do that podcast that week. That was wild.
Yeah, no, I can imagine.
So my wife and I was teaching a class out I think it was Mississippi, that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
And one of her friends was flying into town for work. So we ended up driving to Austin to go meet him up. And so we kind of tailgated at the UT game, jumped around to Austin, had some fun. So it was my wife and I, and then our two friends that were staying in the same room as us.
Yeah.
So I'm getting too old to be going out late. Right. So we called it quit at like 10:30, 11. Went in the room, locked up, took showers, everything, went to bed. Right? Mm-hmm. I wake up at 2:30 in the morning to screaming. Now, my first reaction is, our friends that were staying with us, they can party, right? they know how to party and have a good time. Yeah. So my first reaction is like, oh, they're just, having an argument or just having a blast. My initial thing too was, oh, they're trying to get us to come back out. I was like, I don't want to go back out. I'm done. Yeah. Let me sleep. But the screaming. So I get up and I see this guy standing in between our bed. And again, I've kind of woken up just a little confused. Mm-hmm. I'm like, who is this dude? Yeah. All of a sudden he runs out. Yeah. And I asked our friends, I'm like, do you know that guy? Who is this guy? And they're like, no, do you know him? And then it finally clicked to me. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, this is a random person in my room. Yeah. So I run out. It became a whole cluster. And we're in a I won't say the hotel chain, but it's a well-established, well-known hotel chain. And so the guy was in a room, stole everything inside the room. Then took my keys and stole my car. Oh my gosh. It was a nightmare. And, I had all my training equipment. Wow. I had my projectors, my speakers, all my swag. I just got like so much. It was $15,000 worth of stuff. Mm. Yeah, man. It was brutal. And the worst part is the guy's not going to be able to do anything with it. He's going to pass out some trap mate hats and shirts to his buddies. Right. You have dudes on the corner in like East Austin, sporting dynamic trap mate stuff. Whatever. He did get some of my police gear though. That sucks. Oh man, that sucks. Some of the SWAT gear, or not SWAT gear, but like the outer plates, hard plates, my duty belt, badge, things like that, man. Which sucks. It was interesting though. My wife and I talked, and we're like, we know that door is locked, right? Mm-hmm. As soon as I post that on Facebook, because, the car that was stolen was my trap car. Right. I just started doing this. And I spent a lot, I had to do auctions on these, right? I have to do it the legal and ethical way. I can't just use my agency's trap cars. Right. There's too much of a conflict of interest there. Yeah. So, I had to drop like $8,000 on that thing. Yeah. The cartel wanted that car back bad. Yeah. So I spent put a lot of money into it, and then he steals the car. But thank God, my awesome law enforcement group, I post on all our different groups, and they found a flock camera hit. Yeah. And so I'm running around, man. I'm just LPR chasing. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And finally find the car, man. Thank God they just left it. It could have been a lot worse, But they took all your stuff. Yeah. I mean, it could have been. I told my wife, that could have been a lot worse, How does someone just randomly get into your room? So a buddy of mine called me that same day. He's like, man, you're not going to believe this. Mm-hmm. He's like, the same situation happened to us. Really? They were going to a SWAT competition on the East Coast. Hmm. They checked in full gear, law enforcement. Right. Front desk gives them the keys, go up there. They go to their car. They grab all their stuff because they don't want to leave it in the car. Right. So they grab all their SWAT gear, their rifles, their hard vests. I think he said it was like $40,000 between the two of them. Like a lot. It was a lot. Wow. They went upstairs, put it in the hotel room. Took showers, got dressed, went out to go eat. hour and a half later, they come back and the stuff's gone.
Oh my gosh.
So, it just almost makes you think. And, and that wasn't the only one. I've had multiple people call me, and it kind of, made me think. I was like, shoot, you never really think about that for a hotel. You think it's very secure. They look at video footage, and miraculously during that time, it didn't, the videos weren't working.
Yeah.
They're having technical difficulties.
Yeah.
So if you're in law enforcement and you're staying at a hotel, be mindful.
Don't check
just
in
because
your
room, you have your room, it's locked. It's not 100% secure.
Yeah.
Mike, one of the guys that teaches with me, sent me a couple links on some safety stuff that you can put inside, and I've never once even thought about that. Yeah. Man, I went on Amazon. I spent like $40 on just random stuff.
Right.
Putting up the bed and couch up against the door every time.
Yeah.
Well, that's wild.
Part of this is just, like the young cops, but, I go to training. Part of it, too, is, the fact that I've been in plain clothes now in my career longer than I was ever in uniform, right?
Yeah.
So I'm used to not dressing like a cop, right? So, but, you go to these trainings and everybody's got their T-shirt tucked in with their badge and their gun on, checking in their hotel and, that kind of stuff. And, I get it, when you're young and you're, I did the same thing when I was first coming on, right? Like, you're so proud to be a cop. You want everybody to know it.
Yep.
It's not always the best thing in 2024 for people to know what you do.
Absolutely.
When you're not in uniform.
Absolutely.
Right. So
and that was a lesson learned for me, because I wasn't wearing a uniform at all, but I checked in because the law enforcement aspect, since I was working there,
right.
So I had to show your ID.
Right.
So I thought to myself, it's not even worth it.
Right.
Not even worth it. I'll just check in regularly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's a big difference anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I went to a class the other day, or this is a while back, and I was just, actually I felt really, really old because I was looking at the roster, because I was the last person to get the roster, and I looked at the roster and I had the lowest TCOL number out of, I think there was 45, 50 people there. I had the lowest TCOL number, and I wasn't the oldest one. There was some older people in there, but they hadn't been doing it as long. But saw a bunch of people, badges, guns, like everything in street clothes. And I'm like, guys, I mean, just be careful. Not only for a fact of, like if you're staying in a hotel room, but, you're going into a gas station, it's just a target, right? So
especially this day and age.
Yeah.
Man, and think about how much law enforcement's changed since, how long you been in?
This is my 18th year.
You see, think about when you first started compared to now.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy.
Whole different world.
It's crazy. I got 9 years left, and I can check out and I can retire. So, and hopefully by then the podcast is going to be bigger. And I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast or not, but part of the reason whenever I started this podcast, the name Texas Narcos Podcast, and then I have the parent company, if you will, is called Texas Narcos. And so my eventual plan is, towards the end of my career, when I get ready to retire, is I want to start a training company under the same name.
Oh, nice.
And travel around teaching, like, I'm not going to teach interdiction and stuff. That's not my, it's
your forte.
Experience. I don't have a lot of experience in that, but I want to teach, like, managing informants. I want to teach basic narcotics operations, doing surveillance, doing buys, all that kind of stuff. That's what I want to get into eventually. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, we'll see.
More knowledge passed on is better.
Yeah. Because, like I said, I mean, I can retire in 9 years. I'll be 48 years old. I'll have 27 years on. So, I just want to, I told my wife, I said, I want to buy a motorhome, and I just want to travel the country.
Yeah.
From training to training to training. I book a training, in this part of the country. We'll go up there a week ahead of time. We'll hang out, in the camper. We'll spend a week there. I'll do the training and then move on to the next place.
Yeah.
That's what it may not happen exactly like that, because my kids are not quite, I think, so my youngest one is 7. So he'll still be in high school. I think he'll be a junior in high school by then, but so
he'll be excited to take those weekend trips though.
Yeah.
So that's too far away.
Yeah. So that's my
awesome,
goal.
man.
So we'll see how it works out. But, so we talked a little bit earlier about, this kind of, keys into the question I want to ask, advice for younger officers that are trying to get into the interdiction or the narcotics world. What would you say to those guys that are out there and they're eager, all they want to do is catch bad guys, but they're not getting the support that they need from their agencies? They are having to pay for their own training. They're having to take their own vacation days to go to training, that kind of stuff. What would you say to those guys?
Yeah, that's hard. It's hard, especially when you're motivated, young, and all you want to do is work the road and put bad guys in jail. I was there for a long time.
Yeah.
All I thought about was interdiction work. You could not get me off the highway.
Yeah.
Like, I would do it for free. Heck, I'd work the highway for free now.
Right. Yeah.
I love it that much.
Right.
Keep chipping away. Keep chipping away, keep hammering down, ignore the noise.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. You get these other patrol officers and nothing against them, but not proactive, right? If you're not a proactive cop, that's fine. But if you have other proactive cops, let them do their thing.
Yeah.
Right. You should be motivating them to go out there and put bad guys in jail. And I always hear the complaints, oh, well, you're not taking the calls, or, you're getting tied up on this drug seizure. Now I got to take the calls. Well, that's your job. If you're not being proactive, then you might as well be taking the reports, because what else are you going to be doing?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Just ignore it. Yeah. Ignore it. Keep hammering down, chip away, one stop at a time. Motivation's big though, man. You're in law enforcement, you're going to have those big ups and downs, and you just got to work through it. It's always going to be a better day eventually. Yeah. Support's always hard, especially admin. And I'm a big advocate about trying to really give an understanding to admin of how, they, for example, they create an interdiction team.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They send these guys to trainings. They provide them with some canines and units and everything else. And they're all excited. They're like, let's go. And they put them out on the highway, and they're just sitting at their office. Like, when are they going to hit the road? When are they
they're waiting for the duffel bag full of cash to come in.
Yeah. And the week goes by, and they're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
You guys haven't hit yet?
Yeah.
And it's like, man, no. It takes a long time.
Yeah.
It's a process. And this admin gets so frustrated. And then a couple months go on, and they're like, oh, well, we need something. I mean, you haven't got a dime bag of weed. Well, if you're focusing on dime bags of weed, you're not going to hit the kilos.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Those are completely separate.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing between working patrol is getting out of that mindset. Right. It's a completely different game.
Yeah.
People that, it's just different. I'll just leave it as that.
Yeah.
But the admin has to realize that, these guys take time. When I went to Chicago, what I say, 6-7 months it took me to hit.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Do you think I was struggling a little bit?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a process. I had to learn the road. I've been doing it a long time, and I still failed a bunch.
Yeah.
This admin has to understand that it's got to be a time deal. It does take time. It took me 2 years to hit my first load on the highway.
Yeah.
Long time. I failed a ton.
Yeah.
And it's stepping stones. Every stop you make, every seizure you make, you learn from it. I'd go back, watch my videos.
Yeah.
You should see my reports from back in the day.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm like, but every time I made a stop, every time I wrote a report, every time I did something, I'm always learning from it. So you're building up gradually. Some people freaking sprint to the finish line. Some people jog, some people walk.
Right.
As long as you make it there, that's all that matters.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. And, I tell those guys too, this is a whole nother part of the interview that I usually talk about is, don't let your job, don't let the drive to get out there and catch bad guys get in the way of your family, because, I've said this on almost every episode that I've talked about this, eventually you're going to get off the train. And if the people at the train station, if you don't know who they are, which is your family, people that have been, at home every night, without you for the last 25, 30 years, if they don't know who you are, they're going to replace you at your job tomorrow. By the time you get your next paycheck, they're going to have somebody else in your place. Right. So try to make sure that you don't, forget about the people at home, because, if you don't have the support system at home, then you can't be effective in your job. I talk about that all the time. I'm like, if I go out and I do my thing, and, I'm out till 3:00 in the morning, and I know everything at home is taken care of. Right. So, I don't have to worry about that, but,
you got to have that cutout time for family.
Right.
I do. I've got a time, same thing with my wife and kids, it's my time with them.
Yeah.
You won't ever have me answering my phone, looking at a text message or on my phone, because I need that quality time with them. Even if it's a little bit.
Yeah.
But you look at the law enforcement, how many people get in divorces?
Oh yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I was, So me and my wife been married 14 years. I've been a cop almost 18. So my wife knew what was, to be expected, but there's, it's tons of people are getting, I see them all the time. They're getting a divorce. They're, with a new chick or, whatever. And then it's just, everybody has their issues, but, try to make sure to add time for your family is definitely important. So, well, like I said earlier, today is the November 3rd. We got a couple days till the election. And I hope everybody out there, you probably won't hear this episode until after the election. So I want everybody to stay safe and keep your head on a swivel because it's crazy times out there right now, depending on what happens on Tuesday.
Oh man, I'm still kind of
yeah.
I'm teaching. I'll be in Rockport. I didn't even realize. I was like, how did I schedule a class on the day of election? Yeah. I was like, but it'll be good.
I was in a class in 2016. I was in a class in where was I? New Braunfels, I think. And it was so 2016. I had just started in the narc unit. And there was me and another guy. That was it. Our agency was just standing the unit back up. Basically, we didn't have narcotics prior to that for probably a few years. But anyways, so I'm at this class, and the only way I could get to go to it is if I paid my own hotel. All right, they didn't give me any per diem. They paid for the class, but I had to pay my own per diem and my own hotel. So I got the cheapest place. I think I was in like a Roadway Inn or something, and like a New Braunfels, just a junk freaking motel, right? And I was in the hotel that night when all the election results were coming in, where Trump got elected, where he beat Hillary. And I'm sitting there, I'm watching the TV, and then we come in the next day and we're talking about it. And I was like, man, but
it's going to be a crazy year.
Yeah.
We got 2 days? No, tomorrow.
Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday. So.
Yeah, Tuesday. And
with the days now, that's going to be interesting.
I talk to people, it's crazy to think how much who's in the office, who's in the White House can affect all the way down to the dope world. But I remember in 2018, 2019, we were working a big case, and a kilo of coke was going for anywhere from $29,000 to $32,000 a kilo.
Yeah,
in Austin, Texas. And then you fast forward now to 2024, and they're 13,500, 14,000, right?
Yeah.
The only thing that changed is the border, right? Yeah. There's tons of dope here now.
Yeah.
There was not tons of dope. I remember, 2018, a kilo of meth was going for $10,000.
Yeah.
Now you can get a kilo of meth for $2,000, right? Like
crazy.
It's, I never thought in my career I'd be able to see the time where a pound of weed was more expensive than a pound of meth.
Yeah.
But
we've realized too, over the years, the correlation between the elections and the money flow too.
No,
I don't know if you ever thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
I may be crazy to think this, but just over the years, I'm like, man, it's the same pattern. Is that money's usually always held right before the election. I don't know why.
Yeah, they're waiting.
They're just stockpiling it.
Yeah.
You'll go months beforehand, and it's just little stuff here and there, but you're not getting the consistency. And then all of a sudden that flow just opens up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're either going to keep the same prices that we have now, or or dope's going to get a lot more expensive again. Yeah. One of the two. And, it's crazy. Hopefully we get some expensive dope here in the next year. So
make it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah. But anyways, well, I appreciate you coming on the show, and it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me.
And I'll just remind everybody to go check out Dynamic Police Training. Again, I'm going to put their link to their website on the description. And until next time, y'all, we'll catch y'all down the road on Texas Narcos.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Texas Narcos Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Remember to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, share our podcast with your friends and family. You can find Texas Narcos Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. Your continued support helps us to bring you stories like the one you just heard. Thank you, God bless, and we'll see you down the road on Texas Narcos.